Hello viewers, I hope you are all fit and fine. Today I will be describing about the various network diagramming methods. I have previously mentioned about the scheduling basic in my previous video, and slowly I will be moving towards the critical path method, that is the CPM method. So before moving to the CPM, this is very much required to know about this various diagramming method, because this will come handy when you will be moving towards the CPM method, and this is the method that will be very much required in your civil engineering field or whatever field you have the niche. So before going for that, let's see. Actually this is known as the nodes. This is called the nodes, and this is the arrow, and this is called the activity. So now the various network diagramming methods are: number one is known as the AOA, that is called the activity on arrow. That is known as activity on arrow. This is I, this is J, this is activity, and this is duration. This is also known as IJ method. This is also known as arrow diagramming method. That is known as ADM. Another method is AON. Number two is AON, that is activity on nodes. In AON, this activity is written above and the duration is written below. If it is activity B, duration is dB. This AON method is also known as precedence diagramming method, known as PDM. Actually this PDM is the advanced form of AON. The assumptions of drawing networks are: the arrows are drawn from left to right, that is, arrows are always drawn from left to right. The orientation of arrows are either horizontal or vertical, but not a curved line. And the formats of arrows are arc format, slope format, that is slope format. This is known as the slope format, and the staffing format. That is, this is called the staffing format. And the third point is, the length of this arrow does not have any resemblance with the duration of the activity. Now let us say a few words about the activity on arrow. Actually this is the diagram for activity of arrow. This is I, this is J, this is activity, and this is duration. This is known as tail event, and this is known as head event. This numbering should start from this I and move towards the J, and this arrow does not have any resemblance with the duration of the activity. And another thing is this: the main drawbacks of this AOA activity is the dummy activity. Is the dummy activity. Actually, this dummy activity is the drawbacks of the Aoa diagram, and then it is introduced to represent the dependency of a network, or in order to avoid the duplicate numbering or the duplicate numbering of activities, and it is generally represented by a dotted line. This dummy activity is always represented by a dotted line, and it generally consumes no time and resources. This is one of the drawbacks of this Aoa diagram. And another thing is this Fulcrustan's rule, where it is always said about the forward numbering, that is the I should always be less than j. This I should always be less than j, that is this number should be less than this number. This is to be followed always in drawing the network system. This I should be less than j. And another is the skip numbering. So it is always better to start from 10, this number start from 10, 20 and so on. It is better to avoid starting from 1 and 2, because while the project is in progress, and if you find that you have to insert some new activity in between, then you will never get any space for numbering, as you have started the beginning of the activity with 1. So if you start from 10, there is a scope of inserting any activity, so it is advisable to adopt a skip numbering for a large and complex project. Now it is very important to understand how we prepare the chart before going for this network diagramming. Suppose we are to construct a sewer line. Number 1 is the sewer line of 200 meter length, and number 2, the working hour per day is equal to 8, and the inspection chamber is to be placed at the rate of 10 meter center to center, that is equal to 200 by 10, that is 20 plus 1, that is 21 inspection chamber is to be installed. So now how the chart is to be prepared. So we have just listed out that about the sewer activity that I have written earlier. That is, this is activity ID, this is activity, this is inter-precedence activity IPA, this is productivity per day, this is queue size, and this is duration in hour. So what are the activities? Activity ID A is excavation, IPA is nil, it do not have any inter-precedence activity, and the productivity per day is 30 meter per hour, queue size is 1, so duration is 200 by 30, 200 is the length of this sewer line, and 30 meter per hour is the productivity per day, so this is 15 hours. B is the dressing and leveling, this inter-precedence activity is nil, and this productivity per day is 20 meter per hour, queue size is 1, so this duration is 10 hours. C is the brickwork for the inspection chamber, that is 1 day per unit is the productivity per day, and the queue size is 4, so this will be 21. As we had find earlier, there are 21 number of inspection chamber, so this is 21 into 1 into 8 by 4, as we are having the 8 hours working per day, divided by 4 as the queue size is 4, so this is equal to 42 hours. And this pipe laying and jointing, this pipe laying and jointing is interdependent on the activity B and C, that is dressing and leveling and the brickwork for inspection chamber. This is interdependence with the activity D, and this productivity per day is 30 meter per hour. So crew size is 1 and this duration is 200 divided by 30, that is equal to 15. And this E is the backfilling and the compaction, and this inter-precedence activity is D, that is pipe laying and jointing is dependent on the backfilling. That if this pipe laying and jointing is over, then only you can go for the backfilling. So E is interdependent on D, and this productivity per day is 10 meter per hour, and this crew size is 1, and this is 200 by 10, that is 20 hours. And F is the surface PCC. This is dependent on E, that is if the backfilling and compaction is completed, then can you go for the surface PCC. This is E, and so this is our productivity per day is 10 meter per hour, and crew size is 1, so this is 200 by 10, this is 20. So this is the main thing. From here we have to prepare the chart. So this chart will be prepared in this way, that is the activity, this is A, activity A, here this is called the activity ID, this is activity, and this is the IPA, this is the duration. So A is activity A is excavation, IPA is nil, and duration is 15 hours. Similarly, activity B is dressing, IPA is nil, duration is 10 hours. Activity C is brickwork for IC, and the IPA is nil, and the duration is 42 hours. And activity D is pipe laying, it is IPA is B and C, this is B and C, and this is 15 hours. Activity E is the backfilling and compaction, that is backfilling and compaction is dependent on D, and this takes 20 hours. And activity F is the surface PCC, is dependent on E, and this duration is 20 hours. So this is how this chart gets converted into the activity, and from here we can draw the Aoa diagram, and we will also draw the Aon diagram, just to differentiate what is the difference between AOA and the Aon diagram. So now first of all, let us draw the Aoa diagram. So let us draw the Aoa diagram from this. So first let us draw these nodes, and this is the activity A, and its duration is 15, and then this activity B will come, this is activity B, and this duration is 10. Then the activity C will come, this activity C, this duration is 42. Now this activity D will come from the activity B and the activity C. So here we have to draw it in a different manner, not in this way. So here we have to introduce a dummy, so we have to use the slope, that is here this will be activity B, that is 10 hours, and this will be the activity C, that is 42 hours, as the activity B and C, they are just coming from the same activity A. Now let us introduce the dummy here, this dummy activity, and then the activity D will come from here. This is activity D, and this activity D is having 15 hours, and then this activity F is dependent on this E. This is activity E. This activity E is having 20 hours, and finally this activity F, this is activity F, and this is having also the same 20 hours. So this is the Aoa diagram. As I have mentioned earlier, in Aoa diagram there is the introduction of this dummy activity. This is 0. This is 0. This is known as the dummy activity. Dummy activity. So by means of this dummy activity, this network is completed. And in case of this Aon diagram, let us draw this initially, this one, as this is A, we will write the A above and the duration is 15. Then we will move to this B, this duration is 10. Then we will move to this C, whose duration is 42, and then we will move to this activity D, was 15 hours, and this is both is dependent on B and C, and then we will move to E. This is E, that is 20 hours, and finally to F, that is 20 hours. So this is actually Aon. This is Aon, that is activity on nodes, and this is very simple. There is no need of introducing any dummy activity. This activity A, this is activity A of 15 hours duration. This is directly related to the activity B of 10 hours, and this is related to C of 42 hours. And then this D is dependent on B and C. So this D is, the B is coming to this D of 15 hours, and this C is coming to this D of 15 hours. That is, D is dependent on both the B and C, and then E is dependent on D of this 20 hours, and this F is dependent on E of 20 hours. So this is very simple. This Aon activity, this is very simple, and this is generally nowadays this is in very much practice than this Aoa arrow. Though I have shown you both the method for clarity, and then next in my next video I'll be moving for the critical path method, and there I'll be describing about this the slack countations and this LET and the EET, that I'll be coming in my next video. So if you are inspired by this video and if you find it very interesting, then please like the video, share the video. Your inspiration will help me to move on. This is Aoa Chakraborty signing out till we meet again.